My name is Leroy Bynum. I am the Dean for the College of Arts and Humanities here at Albany State University and the chairman of our Lyceum series. And we are so very thrilled, first of all, to have you here. So welcome to you all from around Dougherty County. I know we have some members of the Albany Youth Symphony here, as well as other string players in the area. So we're especially delighted to have you here. This is a part of the Lyceum, the T. Marshall Jones Fine Arts and Performing Fine Arts Lyceum Performance Series, which is a series that we have throughout the year where we bring guests and guest artists to our campus for short residencies and for performances. Guests who have artists who have international reputations, who have been around the world, and certainly our guests today fit that category. But before I introduce them, I want to introduce to you, many times you have series that are named after people who have been so wonderfully foundational in the cause and in the cause for arts. And oftentimes those people are not with us anymore, but we are so very fortunate that the person for whom this series is named, the T. Marshall Jones Fine Arts and Lyceum Performance Series, is actually alive and well and kicking and among us. And I would like for you to see who he is. And so I'll ask Dr. T. Marshall Jones if he would stand and be recognized. And so, without further delay, I proudly present to you the members of the Harlem Quartet.
How about we warm up as a quartet and play the second movement of Chick, the waltz. So, you guys know who Chick Corea is? Oh yeah, you were here. You were in our concert last night. So yeah, Chick Corea, great jazz pianist, and it's kind of rare to have somebody like that write for string instruments, especially a quartet. So we love this piece, and just want to start with something nice and mellow, a bit jazzy, to get to know each other a bit.
How come more people raise their hands for the first time? That's great. That's great. So you guys all are familiar with, how many of you have played chamber music before? String quartet or that kind of thing? Very interesting. So this is, how many of you have seen a professional string quartet before? Other than last year? That's great. That's great. So we look forward to your questions throughout, to be thinking of things that you'd like to ask or that you want to know about what it is to play in a professional string quartet or what it is that we do. Very happy to talk to you about that. But for now, why don't we play a little more? So have you guys heard of the composer Felix Mendelssohn? Good.
Well, they know something, some of them say no, so I just want to play something that you will recognize. Okay? You know his music, but you didn't know his name.
Every one of you knows this.
That's right. Mendelssohn wrote that. This same guy was having a rough time when he wrote this one, though. Usually he's a very happy composer. Actually, he's the first and probably only rich composer in history. They all were broke, and this one was rich, but he was having a rough time. His sister just passed away when he wrote this, so it's pretty passionate and angry and sad. This one is the Opus 8.
And last opus, right? It's the last complete piece that he wrote before passing away.
So it's pretty rough, but we like it because it's very passionate. actually too warm. I need you to ask some questions so we can rest.
All right. Two questions. First off, what happened with your bow last night? What started? Did it like hit the cello or something?
In the Chick Corea piece last night, not the waltz, but another movement, it's a little crazy. My bow caught the edge of the string here, and it made a very loud sound. So I was worried that something broke. So I panicked in the concert and I looked. So noticed everything still intact, but sure enough, I got lucky. Everything's still there.
Second question I was going to ask all of you: why did you choose the instruments that you chose?
Good question. I'll start.
You mean why did we choose the specific?
Yeah, that's
The specific cello, or like why did I start playing cello?
like start from the cello.
I see.
And then if you want to go deeper, you can say that.
Then you can.
If you have a reason.
So I actually was 4 and I was watching Sesame Street one day, and Isaac Coleman was the guest artist on the show. So it's all about the violin. And I liked the way his chin fit here perfectly in the chin rest. So when the show went off, I asked my mom if I could play the violin. And no one else in my family is a musician, so she figured I'd forget about it soon. So she didn't say yes, but she didn't say no. So I begged for 2 years. And I have Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and left a note with my tooth for the tooth fairy. And finally, when I was 6, she figured, it was serious. I wanted to play the violin. So she got me a violin. It was quarter size, and I got to start playing. So that's how I started. And the funny thing is, we saw a similar episode of Sesame Street, except he saw Yo-Yo Ma.
Yeah.
That's why he plays the cello.
I like your story, actually. Okay, my story is pretty. It's pretty different. I was tricked into playing violin. My dad is a conductor and composer, and he had a trip to Europe, and he brought back a toy violin, just like he would have bring like a car or something. And I'm like little, oh, what's that? Doing baby things. And I don't remember when it happened, but at some point, some Russian lady was screaming at me at home. And that's when it started. And before I had consciousness, I've been playing violin, and I guess that's what I do. So it's like, all right, that's how I started being trained.
Actually, I wasn't tricked into playing the viola, but actually when I was 8 or 9 years old, I didn't know what viola was. Probably like most of the people.
Right.
So
In fact, what's a viola?
you don't know yet. But I started music without playing an instrument, so I was always asking my mom, what's the only musical reference in my family. I want to play something, like I knew all the scales by theory and this and that, so I said I need to play something. It doesn't make any sense right now. Everybody started with the recorder,
Yeah.
I did not,
You didn't like that?
No.
And it's very particular.
Yeah, very particular. So I said, okay, I took the test, I passed into the conservatory, the prep, and they asked me what do you want to play, or which instrument do you like? And I said, okay, I play the piano. And my aunt, she said, no, there are too many pianos. So I was like, okay. So violin, no, there are too many violins. Okay.
So you picked then.
So she picked for me, say, take the viola. You will have a better chance to get a job. I was 8 at the beginning, but I didn't understand that. But why I really understand later that I fell in love with the instrument, because I really have a particular ear with mid-range. I love the register of the instrument, so it's an instrument that really grew up with me. So if you ask me now if I have to change, I will never change. So this is my voice.
When did you play viola? Viola.
Yay! Represent. I started playing viola not long ago, and I love it. It's harder than violin. Most people think it's easier because the parts that the violins get in the orchestra is a little bit less show off than the violins. But if you really want to make a beautiful sound, it's way harder on a viola. It's just bigger, and you need, you need a really spectacular bow arm to sound like Zuckerman or like Jaime, or like, good violist. So keep it up. Don't let any violinist tell you that you're a second-class citizen. I can probably get a job easier than violinists, that's for sure. I may
But interestingly, there's been see a lot of violinists going to viola when they want to get a job right after they
It's
college.
Yeah?
So that's the moment to ask, why do you do that? So
They get smart.
it's like big level right now, so don't feel like a second class.
No.
Should we play some more? Do you have more questions?
The group was formed in 2006, so we're about 8 years old. And originally we were put together by an organization called the Sphinx Organization, which is a really great program actually. It's based out of Detroit, Michigan. And they started just by having a competition for all Black and Latino string players. And now the organization has grown, so they actually have lots of programs. They have a summer camp where we used to teach actually. It's full paid. If you just apply and you're accepted, then they pay for everything and you go for a couple weeks and you get, lessons, all of that. So they have a lot of programs, and they wanted to have an additional one where we would be a string quartet of first prize winners from the competition, and we would go into schools where they don't have music programs and play for school children in the inner city to expose them to classical music. So we said, sure, we'll give it a try, and we didn't really know, all that it meant we'd be doing. We just thought, maybe it'd be fun. So we went and we played our little Beethoven and Haydn and Mozart, and kids, they can't sit still very, very long. So if you don't have their attention, they're honest and they let you know. So we quickly found that we should get some repertoire that would keep their attention. And so with that, we discovered this vast world of rep for string quartet. So we got this piece by Wynton Marsalis, for instance, and this jazz tune, Take the A Train. And so that's how we started incorporating jazz with our classical. And that's where we really had a lot of fun on stage. We had great chemistry putting it together, making it up. And so it grew to be more than just, the original concept of the group. And so 8 years later, here we are.
You got more than you expected with that question, didn't you?
Wait, sorry, before I leave that question, I would really encourage all of you to just Google Sphinx, S-P-H-I-N-X, and look at all of the opportunities that they have, because they have lots of money, and they do great things with it in helping musical education and instruments and just exposure and access to resources to be great musicians. So check it out.
And if you forget that word Sphinx, then Google HarlemQuartet.com and and the word will be there.
And if you forget that, Facebook Harlem Quartet and ask us what we said.
The concert last night was quite lovely. Could you speak a little bit more about being a professional musician in the heart of New York?
Well, we all, so we're the Harlem Quartet. We all don't live in Harlem. We all live in different parts of the city and different boroughs and Newark. But we're a professional quartet, and we actually spend most of our time on the road performing. We perform in New York pretty rarely, actually. I mean, we're most of the time coming to places like this and playing for people like you. And we love what we do. We all feel very lucky to do this on a regular basis, that this is our job.
But I will say, being a professional musician in New York, especially, it's really inspirational, because in the city, like, you're just constantly around artists. You can go see shows. You take the subway, you accidentally get a show. That's true. We went to school with so many people. We went to camp with so many people, and New York is just kind of the center point. So we're with friends. We can have parties where we sight read music. We can meet up to go, see something completely different that you wouldn't go see. And for instance, we played at the Blue Note for a week with Chick Corea, And it turned out to be his birthday month. So he was doing things the whole month after our meeting. So we were able to get tickets to go see him with a flamenco dancer and just all incredible sorts of things. So it's really a great place to be inspired and to keep wanting to create as a musician.
But if you don't have a job, it's kind of tough.
As a freelancing musician in New York, it's very hard because, like Melissa said, there are all these great musicians everywhere. So you're part of this big rat race, fighting for gigs and jobs, and that's hard. It could be very hard.
Yes.
You have a question?
Talk about our educational background? Sure.
I'm a high school dropout, Now, but that's boring. You know, you can just, okay, fine. I'm from Cuba, so I started there until I was 14. Then I went to Moscow. I did my high school there in a boarding school. Really amazing players. Then I went to Spain, also to study. Then the very last thing I did is Manhattan School of Music. That's in New York City, and New England Conservatory. Both very, very great schools. But I feel like today, with internet and with the level of technical level kind of race, and in many cities I find that most good schools have very good teachers, and you can get so much information from internet, from recordings. I'm not saying don't go to the best school you can, but what I'm saying is that the game now is more even. Before it was used to be, I feel like certain cultural meccas, cultural places that if you don't go there, you will never do anything in your life. But now it's not like that. Now there's so many options, and just the general level is better. Internet, you can check out people's fingerings, violin, position, and all kind of things.
I grew up in Lansing, Michigan, and I went to public school for most of my schooling until I was a junior in high school. And when I started getting serious with the violin, I was in middle school, and I signed up for orchestra class, but I was actually past the level of the orchestra class in my middle school. So I asked the orchestra teacher if I could use that period of the day to do individual practice. And she was okay with it as long as I played in the concerts with the orchestra and participated in larger group activities.
Nice.
So that's what I did in middle school, to be able to have an hour during the school day that I could practice. And I did the same thing in high school. And then when I got to my junior and senior year, I went up to Interlochen Arts Academy in northern Michigan. And they have a boarding school academy. So I did my last 2 years there. And then I went to my undergrad in Philadelphia at the Curtis Institute, and did my master's in Boston at New England, and went to New York.
I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I went to public high school, public junior high school, all that. I felt very lucky that my high school had an orchestra, and I used a lot of the opportunities, public school opportunities that were available to me. But my parents are also in the symphony in Utah, so that was obviously helpful as well. But I did my undergrad and master's at the Juilliard School in New York, and then I did a doctorate at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. I just finished last year.
I actually, I grew up in San Juan, Puerto Rico, so I did regular college, school, high school, intermediate, also with the preparatory division of the conservatory. So that means that after 2:30 p.m., whenever you get out of school, you start another school until probably 8 p.m. So I did that. Actually, I feel like I did most of my hard work when I was young. Because I felt like I needed to compensate. I felt like all these people are practicing and getting ready, they're already ready, they're ready to compensate. I did a lot of work before auditioning and everything for college. So I actually started college when I was 16 there at the conservatory level. But then when I was 17, I auditioned to different colleges here in the States. And I started my undergrad at Juilliard School in New York. And I stayed basically in the same area in New York. I did undergrad there in Juilliard, and then I moved to Manhattan, where I briefly met Ilmar, like 10 years ago before we started writing together. So
One important thing that we didn't talk about is summer festivals for us, and they all, I think for all four of us, they played a very important part in our education. One place in particular for me was the Meadowmount camp in upstate New York, which is essentially like a boot camp. I mean, my parents used to threaten me with Meadowmount when I was a kid. They said, "You don't practice, you're going to go to Meadowmount." And then I wanted to go to Meadowmount later on, but they kind of like lock you in a room and make you practice as a kid. But there's nothing else to do at Meadowmount anyway. There's nothing else around there. But so you kind of I needed that time to sort of get better, where I could focus only on practicing. And so that was very valuable. So I recommend, and you feel free to get in touch with us anytime if you have questions about summer camp, summer festival opportunities. And like Melissa said, Sphinx I know have a lot as well. And they're so valuable. And it's, instead of spending your summers doing whatever,
Right. Like I met a kid at the Sphinx camp, and he wasn't very good. But I can't tell that he wanted to really play. And he came back to that camp like 2 years. And after that, he auditioned for Juilliard. I was teaching at a special program there at the time called MAP. It's a program that is linked to the public schools in New York City. And he got in. And then, he was my student there for like 3 years. And to my pride, after that, he got in at Rutgers University. And recently, he sends me a Facebook text that he won the concerto competition. So I watched him play as soloist with an orchestra, and I was like, wow. He switched to viola smart like Jaime. But like, if you really see that kid when I met him at the Sphinx summer, he was clueless. Our cellist at the time, not Matt, told me, man, you should just talk to somebody. That kid is tone deaf. He was coaching a quartet where my kid was the first violinist, and he couldn't carry a tune. Like the melody was really off. So our cellist at the time just called me in private and said, "Look, man, I need to get another kid. This kid is tone deaf. It doesn't matter what I say, he can't correct it." And I was thinking, really? I Googled, is there such a thing as tone deaf? There's many opinions, but I guess there is such a thing. But like, I was really, curious about that because he seemed he had such desire to play. I just couldn't take the idea that somebody's really tone deaf playing violin. So no, he wasn't tone deaf. We had a lot of exercises. I made him put a drum note, on your phone or on your metronomes. You can go A to tune, right? To tune the A. That note can go half step higher and higher. And I remember, spending sometimes with the drum note I'm playing. Let's say you put A, and on top of that drum you go. And you tune it to the A to see if you can tune it. And you just play an A major scale on top of that drum note. And I remember, how happy I was when he started correcting his finger. Like, he's not tone deaf, he's just not trying. And I did that with the metronome too, to see if he could keep a beat, in the scale. And that's how we started getting out of this strange idea that he was tone deaf. And when I saw him play a soloist, a viola, which is a lot harder than a violin, I'm like, wow, it's possible. So yeah, it's a good start if you're not too busy this summer, check out Sphinx. See if you can send a tape. You have to send a tape. No, a video. They don't
I
believe in
think the
tape.
date, actually the cutoff date is April 8th. I've been seeing it go around Facebook.
All right.
So
And then
know
you
how-
meet a lot of people.
Yeah, that's the thing. So practicing is not always fun. But when you're with your friends and everyone's doing it, it's a lot easier to do. And then you come together and you also have, recreational activities and incorporate it into your day. For me, I thought camp was the best place on earth growing up. It was just such a good time.
And then you see people that inspire you. You see people that make you want to practice. So it doesn't
Yeah.
become like a chore. You actually really want it. You really want to sound like the people you hear or the people that inspire you. That's great.
So.
Well, so I told the story how the group came together, right? Ilmar and I were original members, so we were put together 8 years ago when it started. But these two are with us now for the second season, and we met through mutual friends. So Matt and I had a friend in common, and Ilmar and Jaime had crossed paths before. And yeah, we were looking for 2 new members, so they were interested, and we got together and we played, and it worked out. And then Omar found we had a lot in common when it came to eating with these guys, and that's important. So they joined the group.
So we didn't, Melissa and I didn't really, like, we didn't go to school together, but we found each other through this organization. And here too, like we were saying, when you go to festivals, you meet people that are not in your circle. They're not in your school, they're not your family's friend, but just me. Because you're outside of your own circle too. So it's good to start where you are locally, but if you start going to festivals and meeting other people, you never know what that could lead to. And we owe you a question, right?
Well, thank you again for coming. I wanted to just reemphasize, you mentioned something that relates to what we call regional bias, which means, you basically said it doesn't matter that you're not in New York. It doesn't matter where you are. You can become an extremely high-level musician wherever you are. And sometimes, and I teach here in the area, and I've taught at various universities, but sometimes people get in their head that since I'm not going to this school or I don't live in that city, then I'll just do good enough for here. And there's something wonderful about saying, wherever you are, you can be in Southwest Georgia, and you can learn how to compete with people who are in New York because you can get the information from wherever you are. So that's one comment I want to, and I appreciate you saying that. The other part is beyond getting the skills to become a professional musician and being in an area where there's so many of them, what else does a beginning or aspiring professional musician need to do in terms of communication skills, understanding of business, and other than being good on violin, what do you need to do to be able to work often?
Like, so Missy was not born into a musical family and not particularly a cultural center. and she is just a great example that you can do it. And her skills, like besides playing well, I think has to do with her ability to smile, say thank you, write a thank you card, maybe play in places. Like, I'm so amazed when we go to a city and we meet somebody that knows Missy or knows of Missy. And like sometimes I met people that say, oh yeah, I remember when, we had a fundraiser and we helped you take lessons really far away because it was, really expensive and we all contribute to that. And I'm like, really? That's so sweet. And this happens so often. And I don't think talent alone would have done it if she didn't have certain human values, manners, to say, I can volunteer and play to this particular, school or a church or how you call resting homes? Retirement homes. These kind of things are beyond being a good player. And this part is very important when you are in this age and you want to do something else. It's not just, the most important thing is your own commitment to, getting better. And that nobody can give you that. But after that, your own willingness to get out of your comfort zone and start sharing what you know and, meeting people. But, pretty much, I don't want to put her on the spot, but she's a really good example. Yeah.
Wow, thank you.
In addition
That's
to
the kindest thing you've ever said.
So to keep talking about Missy, this idea that, no, but seriously though, this idea that when you're a kid, so the music community is the classical music community is very small, and one of my very good friends, when I was considering joining the Harlem Quartet at the time, knew Melissa back when she was 10 years old and played at the Disney Orchestra. There was this Disney Orchestra that used to exist, doesn't anymore. But Melissa went out with a 10-year-old and got up to play a solo at the Disney Orchestra. And she'll never forget Missy, the smiles and the warmth that she left a lasting impression on many, many people. But it's from that point, from being, surrounded by musicians, to always have goals, to set goals right away, short-term goals, long-term goals, to discover in college and in high school, be thinking about what it is that you want to do. Something that I felt was neglected in my conservatory education, being it was supposedly, a great music school. Juilliard is surrounded by great musicians, but I still left school and I wasn't sure what I was going to do after that. Where I wanted to go. And it's funny to think about because I felt like, I was there. I knew, everything would just be fine. I just thought, everything will be fine when I graduate. Something will just happen. But nobody was there saying, guiding my own personal goals, I guess. So I think at your age, something I wish that I had done. I'm very happy now, very lucky to be in this group. But I wish that at your age I thought, what is it that I really want to do specifically? What are my short-term goals? What are my long-term goals?
To that, I'll just add, actually, I was going to point you out. It's amazing how much people want to help you. And if you're working hard, people see that and they appreciate it and they want that to thrive. They want to help feed it. They want it to grow. They're excited for you and all the potential you can have. So in your community, there are so many groups. And I'm glad Dr. Jones just stood up because I was going to say he is an example of someone who has so many connections and is happy to connect people together for the best of each person, for each of you. So yes, please.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you guys for coming, being a part of this series, and I thank Dr. Bynum every morning in my prayer for thinking of me in such a wonderful way. It's like a dream come true. You never dreamed this would happen. The little country boy from Orange, Virginia. And one of the things I wanted to mention, that is that in your courses of study, it's very important not just to be talented on your instrument, your voice, what have you, but it's very important that you take some courses in business, economics, law, because it's important to be able to manage your business, which is music. And many times we find that unscrupulous managers of people who are very talented will steal them blinds, quote unquote, because they do the talent and the performances, and they leave it up to people who are not looking out for their best interests financially. So you might want to make a comment about being prepared to manage your business in a way that you do not get off course and all of a sudden you wake up one morning. And I think of Isaac Hayes, who woke up one morning, tremendous musician, but two agents came to his door and served him a paper that said, "You owe the IRS $6 million. And I thought to myself, well, if he owed them $6 million, think of how much he had made to owe them that much. And I use it as an example in teaching my students to be prepared to take care of the business of your business, which is performing, teaching. It really doesn't matter what it is that you go into. But you've got to be able to manage your business in a manner that's going to be to your advantage, not to the advantage of someone that you will trust your future to as you perform across the country, across the world. And so again, I met the original group 4 or 5 years ago when Harlem Quartet came to play with the symphony orchestra at what we call the Old Mount Zion Church. And we fell in love with them and took them around. And I say this very proudly, and I said it to Dr. Hood last night. Melissa is my goddaughter, and we met at that time. And so she says it's not going to be that long between now and the next time as we stay in touch. But you all have just been a manifestation of all that is wonderful to us here in this good life city of Albany. And we thank you for being part of this Lyceum series that Dr. Bynum has put together. And we look forward to your crossing our paths, New York City, Los Angeles, Cuba, Brazil, England, wherever you may be. And for these young people here, to be an inspiration to them. And the young man that I talked to earlier, he said he has been inspired to practice more and become a greater and a much better player. So again, thank you so much.
Yes.
On the practice note, can I just add one thing? Because I saw something recently on Facebook that I thought was a great read. It's about, how does a parent make their child practice, or how do we make ourselves practice? And when it comes down to it, people are like, oh, I'm so not inspired, I can't practice. But you don't have to be inspired to practice. Really, the clock should show you how to practice. So if you make it a part of your day that's a disciplined, factored in, scheduled item, when the clock says 9 a.m., that's when you practice. Okay, you guys go to school, so let's go to the evening. When the clock says 7 p.m., you practice from 7 to 9. No one has to tell you to do it. You don't have to wait to be inspired because maybe on Wednesday and Fridays you're not inspired. So you don't wait for that. You wait for the clock to say 7 to 9, and that's when you do your practice. And it becomes a consistent thing. And if you get into the routine of having it be regular like that, you'll actually find a different way of being inspired. You won't wait to be inspired, you'll do it, and that's what will actually give you the inspiration. So maybe use that and set a time when you can do it. If 7 to 9 doesn't work for you, whatever works.
That's an overachiever right there. Listen to her.
I need it myself. I'm gonna make a time for myself in the day.
Who asked the question?
Has the group proposed any music?
Not officially, no. But we like to, let's say somebody gives us an arrangement of jazz, we like to personalize that arrangement. Change few things, a lot of things. But it's always good to start from the point that is already written. It's not lack of ideas, it's something else. But I encourage everybody to write. It's very important, it's very nice. And improvise too.
All right.
So we have a last piece. It's one of our favorite, and we started playing jazz with this piece. It's Take the A Train. The A Train is a subway stop that connects Harlem to downtown. So musicians that usually live in Harlem I love taking that train because it's an express train. You don't have to stop everywhere. Just go straight and do your gig and come back home. So take the A train. It's a title of this tune by made famous by Duke Ellington. Oh.